Hi guys. I am hopping on again. I just wanted to share with you my conviction about why I'm voting for Trump and Vance in this election. Why I've sent in my ballot already. And I wanted to also give some context as a Christian, why why a Christian even needs to be voting at all, whether you vote for Trump or not, why Christians should vote. So I just wanted to start with some facts, and you can look this all up. You can find out these facts for yourself. But here are some facts as to why I have chosen to vote for Trump. First of all, we know that there are biblical values. We know that abortion is not on God's heart. I can go into a whole separate video on Moloch, the god Moloch, and how every single abortion, every baby that's blood is shed is actually power sourcing demons. And it's an open door to the enemy, whether people know it or not. I'm not saying that everyone that goes in and has this thing done understands what they are doing. Some people feel like they have no other choice. Again, it's a whole separate context. But the point I wanted to make is that God's heart is for those babies. And abortion trucks at the Democratic National Convention is horrific. And overall, there were over 1 million babies aborted in the United States in 2023 alone, and that was up 11% from the year before. This cannot be God's heart. Another thing I wanted to share on that regarding just abortion, I'm giving you facts, okay? I'm just going to try to keep my emotions out of it and give you facts, right? Kamala Harris cannot pass an abortion law that covers all 50 states. She can't do it. There are laws, there are rules that have been put into place. Same as Trump. Trump can't do it either. There are things that are put into place that make it just something she doesn't have the power to do. All right, checks and balances and all that. It's not a federal issue. It's not a constitutional issue. Therefore, it is a state by state issue. So all the promises being made about women's health care and all this stuff that has been said is being said in a way that makes it sound like when she comes into office that she's going to do away with it all. She's going to overturn Roe versus Wade, all of that. That actually cannot be done. It legally cannot be done the way the United States is set up. Same goes for Trump. In fact, Trump, regardless of what, I heard Charlie Kirk say this, regardless of what Mandy Woodhouse may feel about abortion, Trump doesn't feel the same way. Trump is actually more pro-choice than he is pro-life. He is against late-term abortion, and he is all for giving medical care to those babies who are part of late-term abortion, who have been aborted and ended up not dying because they've been born alive. He is for giving health care to those babies and placing them in, a system that's going to look after them, whereas Harris is not. Trump, in the issue of abortion, go and look it up. Stop listening to whatever everyone else is saying. The issue of abortion is Trump is for state by state. There is not a way that either Harris or Trump is going to be able to make any major changes to those things. So if you are voting for her based purely on that, you have been misinformed. All right. The second reason that I'm voting for Trump is because under Biden, they have turned Easter into the Trans Day of Awareness. I'm sorry. That is ungodly, and that is a slap in the face of every born-again, spirit-filled believer. The idea that Harris stood up in a rally where someone screamed out, "Jesus is Lord." She told them that they were at the wrong rally. She told them to leave. And then just days later, she was standing on a stage in a church, calling herself an Esther for this generation and talking about abortion, pro-abortion, twisting scripture. That's not godly, guys. That's not godly. Allowing children to be mutilated under something called gender-affirming care. I'm sorry, that is wrong. That is not godly, and it's not loving. She actually took an oath. Here's the next thing. She took an oath. You can go and you can search it. I did. I searched what she said in her oath as vice president, and she took an oath to protect and maintain the borders. And as we know, that this is not a moral refugee issue. Okay, it's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about protection of the borders. I heard someone say, but she's just the vice president. How could she be in charge of that? No, that's actually what she was given to do as vice president. That was her main role as vice president. And as vice president, she took a legal oath to protect the country from the exact words, to defend them from U.S. enemies, foreign or domestic, and then has allowed so many people through those borders. 320,000 children have been sex trafficked through the open borders. Look it up. 320,000 children. This is not God's heart, guys. Under Harris, you have to, in the U.S., you have to be earning $130,000 a year to buy a house. Under Trump, it was $75,000 a year. What about Gen Z? Millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. They're going to be renting for the rest of their lives under Harris. This can't be. Do you know that Trump, I only found this out today, was the first president in 32 years that there were no new wars under him in the 4 years he was in office? There was a war under Bush, Obama, Biden. The list goes on. He's the first president in 32 years where there was no war. And one of the first things that he wants to do is end the war with Russia and Ukraine. And he stands by Israel. One of the things I like about him is that I feel like he's almost like a Katniss Everdeen in, if you've seen the Hunger Games. He's not Katniss Everdeen, but there's something about her character and what she stands for. He is not afraid of the war machine. He is going to stand against the WEF, the WHO, all of them. He's standing against those things. He opposes men in women's sports, and she actually supports that. She supports government censorship on social media. These are things that you can look up online. She may say, you may see videos where she says one thing, then she says another. Likewise, they do the same with him. But if you look at their platform, if you go to the U.S., American, presidential election platform, it has a list of what she supports and what he supports and who opposes what. She supports government censorship on social media. He doesn't. Free speech. That's why he's got Elon, right? She supports an Iran nuclear deal with America. How scary is that? She supports a reduction of funding from the police. As someone who has a number of relatives who work for the police department and sheriff's department, I can say to you, this isn't right. This is not right. Removing funding from the police is not right. And one of the things that Trump wants to do as well is he wants to make changes to taxing. Now, for those of you that say, yeah, but Trump is we can't stand him as a person. We can't stand whatever. Okay, He may be arrogant, but he's good at what he does, and he's not a pushover. And I don't want a president who is a pushover. I don't want a president who's going to be bought out. I don't want a president who has been highly like a puppet. Okay. I promised I would leave my emotions out of this. I'm leaving my emotions out. One thing too about Trump that I love, the Bible talks in Proverbs about the wisdom of many counselors. And I look at this team that he's got around him, and every single person on this team, specifically RFK, I feel like they actually hold a value or something that I highly align with. And they're not, some of them are political backgrounds, some of them aren't. But they stand for something good and wholesome. And so far, what I've seen from the Harris Waltz side is their team is all like celebrities and elites. And yeah, Trump has some elites as well. But I'm sorry. What does a celebrity know about running the country? I'm really bothered by that. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that she calls him Hitler and she calls him a fascist, right? And she likens it to that. Yet, that quote that everybody doesn't understand, I'd be unburdened by what has been. I'm sorry to misquote her. I don't mean to disrespect her by misquoting her, but you know what I'm talking about. Do you know, if you dig a little bit deeper, she's changed the words a bit, but that's actually a Marxist quote. That's a Marxist idea. And a lot of the things that she has actually said and quoted, the words have been changed just a little bit, but the idea behind it comes from a more communist manifesto. And, there's that. But then also the fact that she was appointed. She wasn't voted in. She wasn't voted in. She was appointed. Trump was voted in. And she highly supports censorship. And there are also clips about her talking about how she feels that the government should control small business. But yet Trump is the, Nazi fascist. So I'll end on this. Why do I think that a Christian should vote or should get involved? First of all, for those of you that throw the Romans 13 out there, there's a good one from Romans 13 that voting publicly actually recognizes that we are submitting to authority of the political system in our nation. So it's a good thing to vote. Second thing, it fulfills our civic duty as a resident on the earth and as a resident in our respected nations. Third thing, it's a good part of stewardship. We're stewarding the earth that God gave us. The fourth thing, and here's where it gets a little, I'm going to try to not be emotional. Proverbs 22:28 talks about not moving the ancient boundary lines that have been set in place. Y'all, the ancient boundary lines have been moved. I'm sorry. Gay marriage, transgender agendas, having this stuff forced in our schools, abortion, late-term abortion. There are some things that are happening. Men in women's sports, there are things that are happening that are ancient boundary markers that were set by the Lord himself, and they have been moved. And as a Christian, it is our responsibility to get involved, to vote, to have a voice, to have a say, and to move them back to plumb line. It's part of us as Christians ruling and reigning on this earth. And the last part, and this one gets me going. We are responsible for the future of our children. We are responsible for the next generation. We will be held to account because we have not set up a nation where our children can be free and can be everything that God has called them to be for him. There are witches that are involved in politics. Why can't a Christian get involved in politics? Look, and the famous quote, and this is where I'll end, the famous quote, separation of church and state. I actually looked into that, and it is more accurate to say separation of state from church, because that comes from the First Amendment, and it was written actually to keep Congress from forming its own religion and then getting involved in other people's religions. So it's actually to keep Congress, to keep the government from interfering with the church. It's not the other way around. And where it gets mixed up is Thomas Jefferson wrote a public open letter that was published by some sort of big, news, whatever, in the 1800s. And he talked about it to let people know, and to let actually, it was for Christians to know that they were safe and they didn't have to worry about the government imposing themselves upon their Christian beliefs. What's happening now? So, separation of church and state. Church, you need to get involved. You need to get involved. And that is why I'm voting for Trump. And that is why I have gotten involved. And I hope that you take to heart what I'm saying.